The warning. High Counselor Zixthanix adjusted his crystalline sensory arrays as he gazed at the young diplomat before him. The Centaurian's bioluminescent patterns flickered with curiosity, clearly unaware of why she had been summoned to the most secure chamber in the galactic archives. "You're wondering why I called you here, First Diplomat Tulara." The ancient being's voice resonated through the chamber. "It concerns your latest assignment, the human delegation." Tulara's patterns brightened with excitement. "Yes, High Counselor. I studied their history extensively. They seem quite reasonable, despite their technological limitations. Their art, music, literature." "Stop." Zixthanix's crystalline form pulsed with warning colors. "You've read the official records. Now you need to know the truth. Why Galactic Law 447X exists. Why humans are forbidden from participating in any military conflict beyond their solar system." The chamber's lighting dimmed as Zixthanix activated the neural interface, preparing to share his memories directly. "What I'm about to show you happened 60 cycles ago. I was there, watching as humans taught the galaxy why some species are too dangerous to ever be allowed to fight." The memory crystal between them began to glow. "It started with what we thought was a minor border dispute between the Arcturian Empire and the Vega Confederation. We asked Earth to mediate. They had shown remarkable diplomatic skills in previous negotiations. We didn't know we were about to witness something that would change galactic law forever." "But High Counselor," Tulara interrupted, "the historical records say humans lack significant biological advantages. No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no telepathic abilities." Zixthanix's laugh echoed like breaking glass. "That's exactly what makes them so terrifying. You see, when most species wage war, they fight until they achieve their objective or determine victory is impossible. Humans? They fight until they win. Period. No matter the cost, no matter the odds, no matter what they have to become to achieve victory." The memory crystal pulsed brighter. "Let me show you what happened when the Arcturians decided to test human resolve. They attacked a small human research station, just a tiny outpost with 20 scientists. They thought it would be a simple show of force." Tulara watched as the crystal projected images of what appeared to be standard human facilities. "I don't understand. What made this incident so significant? What happened next redefined our understanding of warfare." Those 20 scientists, with virtually no military training, held off an Arcturian battle fleet for 3 days. They converted their atmospheric processors into chemical weapons. They reprogrammed maintenance robots into suicide drones. They even deliberately breached their reactor to create a radiation barrier. The High Counselor's form dimmed slightly. "But that wasn't what terrified us. No, what terrified us was that when we reviewed their communications, they were laughing, making jokes. They turned their desperate last stand into a game, competing to see who could take down the most Arcturian ships before the rescue fleet arrived." "Surely that's just a stress response," Tulara suggested. "We thought so too, until we saw what happened when the human military actually arrived. You see, most species have to be driven to war. Humans, they've been preparing for it since they first looked up at the stars. Every human child grows up playing war games. Every human entertainment network broadcasts stories of conflict and victory against impossible odds. They don't just accept the possibility of war. They rehearse for it their entire lives." Zixthanix moved closer to Tulara. In just 6 days, the human counterattack had pushed the Arcturian Empire, a civilization that had dominated its sector for 10,000 years, to the brink of collapse. Not through superior technology or numbers, but through what they called creative problem-solving. They transformed cargo ships into kinetic weapons, accelerating them to relativistic speeds. They weaponized their own bacteria, designing viruses that could survive in space. They even figured out how to hack Arcturian quantum communications by analyzing the background radiation patterns. Every time the Arcturians developed a countermeasure, the humans would already be trying something new. The memory crystal showed scenes of human ships, tiny compared to their adversaries, yet leaving trails of destruction in their wake. But here's the truly frightening part. They were holding back. Our analysis showed they had at least 37 more devastating strategies they hadn't even deployed yet. They weren't fighting to destroy the Arcturians. They were fighting to teach them a lesson. Tellura's bioluminescence had faded to a pale glow. So the law was created to protect the galaxy from humanity's most terrifying weapon, their inability to accept defeat. The humans agreed to it, you know. They understood. In fact, they helped write it. Zix Thanix deactivated the memory crystal. That's why you're here. Your job isn't just to diplomatic with the humans. It's to make sure they never have a reason to show the galaxy what they're truly capable of. As Tellura left the chamber, she caught a glimpse of her own reflection in the crystalline walls. Her patterns were showing fear, but also something else: fascination. Perhaps that was the most dangerous thing about humans. They made the impossible seem not just possible, but inevitable. The incident. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Tenacity, watching the holographic display of the Arcturian fleet with practiced calm. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence, their fingers dancing across quantum interfaces as they processed the incoming data. "They've taken out our quantum relay at Proxima Station," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the implications. "We're cut off from Earth Command." Chen nodded, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Just as expected. Status of Operation Mockingbird. All civilian research stations broadcasting fake distress signals as planned. The Arcturians are splitting their forces to investigate each one." The Admiral's smile widened. The Arcturians, with their rigid hierarchical thinking, had fallen for the oldest trick in human military history: divide and conquer. They couldn't conceive that humans would deliberately appear weak to draw them in. "Signal the Ghost Fleet," Chen ordered. "Execute Phase 2. Across the sector, seemingly abandoned human mining installations suddenly powered up. Each one housed a single prototype quantum weapon, technology the humans had deliberately leaked to their enemies. The Arcturians had spent months analyzing the stolen plans, preparing countermeasures for these weapons. But the weapons weren't weapons at all. Each installation exploded in a carefully calculated burst of quantum radiation, harmless to organic life, but precisely calibrated to interact with the Arcturian ship's neural crystal processors. Their entire command and control network went dark. "Arcturian fleet showing signs of confusion," Rodriguez reported. "Their formation is breaking down." Chen activated the fleet-wide comm. "All ships, execute Operation Storyteller." The human fleet moved with practiced precision, each ship following a battle plan they'd rehearsed countless times. But not because they expected this exact scenario. Rather, because humans had spent centuries imagining every possible way an alien invasion might come. Science fiction, it turned out, was humanity's greatest military asset. The Arcturians had studied human military capabilities, analyzing their weapons, defenses, and tactics. What they failed to understand was that every human entertainment drama, every speculative story, every child's game of aliens and astronauts had been preparing humanity for this moment. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, "the Arcturian flagship is attempting to regroup their forces. They're adapting to the quantum interference faster than expected." "Right on schedule," Chen replied. "Signal the Trojan Horse squadrons." Across the battlefield, civilian cargo ships that had been drifting dead in space suddenly came to life. The Arcturians had ignored them, their sensors showing them to be full of industrial minerals. They were, specifically, minerals that could be superheated into plasma with the right electromagnetic pulse. 20 cargo ships detonated simultaneously, transforming their holds into miniature suns. The Arcturian ships' crystal hulls, designed to refract energy weapons, acted like prisms, focusing the plasma burst back onto themselves. Arcturian fleet reporting 70% casualties. Rodriguez announced. Their remaining ships are attempting to retreat. Chen's expression hardened. Not yet. They need to understand the message. Launch the liberation packages. Small, stealth drones detached from the human ships, each carrying a quantum processor loaded with a simple program. Freedom. The Arcturian Empire's power relied on their ability to maintain neural control over their servant races. The human virus didn't attack their systems. It simply showed their slaves that rebellion was possible. Within hours, reports began flooding in of uprisings across Arcturian space. The empire that had stood for 10 millennia began to crumble, not from military defeat, but from an idea. Admiral. Rodriguez's voice was quiet now. We're receiving a transmission from the Arcturian flagship. They're requesting terms for surrender. Chen turned to her communications officer. Send them this message. The terms are simple. Every enslaved species gets a choice. Every world gets a vote. And the Arcturian Empire learns what humans knew from the start. True power comes from the consent of the governed, not the barrel of a gun. She paused, then added, and remind them. This was us being merciful. We could have used the bioweapons our scientists developed, targeting their crystalline biology. We could have deployed the time dilation bombs our physicists designed. We could have done what humanity has always done when pushed too far, found a way to win at any cost. The bridge was silent as the message was transmitted. Finally, Rodriguez spoke again. Admiral, was this why we leaked those weapon plans? Why we let them think they knew our capabilities? Chen nodded. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics. It's our imagination. We spent centuries telling stories about alien invasions, dreaming up ways humanity might survive against superior forces. When the real invasion came, we had already fought this war 1,000 times in our minds. She turned to face her crew. Every human child who ever played at being a space hero, every author who wrote about first contact, every filmmaker who imagined interstellar war, they were all preparing us for this moment. The Arcturians never stood a chance. They studied our weapons but not our stories. They analyzed our technology, but not our dreams. The holographic display showed the Arcturian ships powering down their weapons. Victory was complete, but Chen felt no triumph. She knew that across the galaxy, other species would be watching, learning. They would see how humanity fought, not with brute force, but with creativity, adaptability, and an unwillingness to accept defeat, and they would be terrified. The decision. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with nervous energy as representatives from over 300 species gathered for what would become the most significant session in Council history. The crystalline dome above reflected the light of 1,000 different homeworlds, each representative attending via quantum projection. First speaker Maya Vox, her plasma form contained within an ornate environmental field, addressed the assembly. We are here to discuss the human question. The reports from the Arcturian conflict have been distributed. The floor is open. The hive mind of the Centauri was first to speak, their collective consciousness manifesting as a shimmering cloud. The humans must be contained. Their approach to warfare defies all rational analysis. They do not fight like a civilized species. That's precisely the point, interrupted Ambassador Xin Lai of Earth, her hologram standing calmly amidst the alien assembly. We don't fight like you because we don't think like you. We never had the luxury of evolutionary stability. Every human advancement came from overcoming impossible odds. The mechaniarch of the Silicon Collective rotated its processing core. Analysis indicates human military doctrine incorporates elements classified as entertainment and games. Explanation required. Lai smiled. When human children play, they imagine scenarios far beyond their current capabilities. They dream of being stronger, faster, smarter than they are. Then they grow up and make those dreams real. Every human victory started as someone's imagination. This is what terrifies us, rumbled Grand General Cathax of the warrior clans. His massive form bore the scars of 1,000 battles. We've analyzed your military training. You don't just prepare for likely scenarios. You prepare for impossible ones. Your science fiction has predicted and solved problems your species hadn't even encountered yet. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices and thought patterns. The hive mind pulsed with agitation. They turned cargo ships into weapons. They weaponized their own bacterial flora. They transform everything into a means of victory. Ambassador Lai raised her hand, waiting for quiet. You're missing the point. We don't see ships as weapons or tools. We see possibilities. When humans look at a problem, we don't accept the obvious limitations. We ask, what if? And then we make what if into reality. First speaker Mayavox's plasma form flickered thoughtfully. The Arcturian data shows your species actively held back. You had weapons you chose not to use, strategies you didn't deploy. Why? Because the goal wasn't to destroy the Arcturians, Lai explained. It was to change them. If we had simply defeated their fleet, they would have rebuilt and tried again. Instead, we showed their enslaved populations how to free themselves. We didn't just win the battle. We made sure we'd never have to fight it again. The Silicon Collective's processors weird. Query: is this standard human military doctrine? To achieve victory through societal transformation rather than military supremacy. Lee's hologram walked to the center of the chamber. There's something you need to understand about humans. We don't have a military doctrine. We have imagination. Every human who's ever lived has thought about how they would handle impossible situations. We call it daydreaming. When those dreams become reality, we're not starting from scratch. We're implementing plans we've been refining our entire lives. The chamber fell silent as she continued. You think we're dangerous because we're good at fighting. But that's not it at all. We're dangerous because we refuse to accept limitations. Show us an impenetrable defense, and we'll find a way through it. Tell us something's impossible, and we'll make it possible. Grand General Cathax leaned forward. Then you understand why we must act. Your species' potential for warfare is too great to risk. Yes, Lai said simply. We agree. The chamber erupted again, this time in confusion. The first speaker's plasma form pulsed brightly. You agree? Of course we do. You think we don't know how dangerous we can be. Every human story about first contact includes the possibility that we might have to fight for our survival. We've imagined and reimagined every scenario. That's why we know this law is necessary. Lee's hologram produced a document. In fact, we've drafted the legislation ourselves. A complete ban on human participation in interstellar warfare, with specific provisions for exceptions in cases of existential threats to galactic civilization. We know what we're capable of. We prefer to use that capability for creation rather than destruction. The Council spent the next 12 hours reviewing the human-drafted law. They found it more comprehensive and restrictive than anything they had planned to propose. The humans had indeed thought of everything, including scenarios the Council hadn't even considered. As the final vote was tallied, unanimous in favor, first speaker Mayavox turned to Ambassador Lai. Your species continues to surprise us. You draft laws to restrict your own power. You imagine worst-case scenarios to prevent them from happening. Even in this, you think differently than the rest of us. Lee's hologram smiled. That's the real reason for this law. Not because we're too dangerous to fight wars, but because we're too good at imagining peace. Let us focus on that instead. The law was entered into the Galactic Code as Resolution 447X, the Human Combat Restriction Act. But privately, many council members noted that even this felt like another example of humans seeing possibilities where others saw limitations. They had turned their own containment into a form of liberation. The consequence: 50 years after the Human Combat Restriction Act, the Galactic Council faced its greatest crisis. The void between galaxies had spawned something unprecedented: the swarm. Massive biological ships, seemingly immune to conventional weapons, devouring everything in their path. Emergency Session Hall 17 was filled with the desperate voices of council representatives. Holographic displays showed the swarm's unstoppable advance through the Outer Rim sectors. The warrior clan's entire defense fleet, obliterated, reported Grand General Kthax, his scared form now bearing fresh wounds. Our weapons barely scratch their bio-armor. They adapt to everything we throw at them. The Silicon Collective's primary node pulsed with rare emotion. Our predictive matrices have failed. The swarm's behavior patterns defy logical analysis. They learn, evolve, and counter our strategies faster than we can implement them. First speaker Mayavox's plasma form had dimmed to a pale flicker. The hive mind reports 3 more colony worlds lost in the past solar cycle. At this rate, the swarm will reach the core worlds within 2 months. In the center of the chamber, a single human hologram stood quietly. Dr. Elena Martinez, Earth's current representative, had been listening silently for hours. Finally, she spoke. "You're fighting them wrong." The chamber fell silent. The first speaker's form brightened slightly. "Explain." Martinez gestured at the battle displays. "You're treating them like an enemy army. They're not. They're a force of nature. You don't fight a hurricane. You survive it, study it, and learn to predict it. Our analysis indicates survival probability approaching 0. The Silicon Collective intoned. The swarm consumes all organic and synthetic material. There is nowhere to hide. Martinez smiled. Who said anything about hiding? Humans have been preparing for this scenario for centuries. We called it the zombie apocalypse, an unstoppable consuming force that can't be reasoned with. We've run this simulation millions of times in our entertainment media. Your entertainment. Kthax rumbled incredulously. Every human disaster story, every apocalyptic scenario we've imagined. They're all training simulations. We don't just imagine how to fight threats. We imagine how to survive them, adapt to them, overcome them. She paused. But we can't help unless you temporarily suspend Resolution 447X. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. The first speaker raised her plasma form for silence. You would use this crisis to escape the restrictions. No, Martinez said firmly. We'll accept even stricter restrictions afterward. But right now, you need what humans do best, seeing possibilities where others see only obstacles. She waved her hand, and new holographic displays appeared. We've been watching the swarm, studying them. Not as enemies, but as a puzzle to be solved. And we've noticed things your military analysts missed. The displays showed detailed analyses of swarm behavior patterns. They're not just consuming resources, they're seeking specific molecular combinations. Their behavioral patterns suggest they're not invaders. They're desperate. This isn't an invasion. It's a migration of refugees. The Silicon Collective's processors whirred rapidly. Hypothesis. The swarm is seeking survival, not conquest. Exactly. Martinez nodded. And that gives us options. We don't need to defeat them. We need to solve their problem. Human scientists have already developed 3 potential solutions, but implementing them would require military action that's currently forbidden to us. First speaker Mayavox's form pulsed with concern. If we suspend the resolution and your solutions fail, then humanity will accept permanent demilitarization, Martinez said calmly. But they won't fail, because we're not going to fight the swarm. We're going to save them. And in doing so, save ourselves. The council debated for 6 hours. Finally, they voted. Resolution 447X was suspended, with one condition. Humans would operate under the direct supervision of council observers. As the chamber emptied, Grand General Kthax approached Martinez. Your species continues to confound us. When faced with an unstoppable enemy, you don't see a final battle. You see a problem to be solved. Martinez's hologram flickered as she smiled. That's why the resolution exists. Not because humans are too dangerous to fight wars, but because we're too good at turning enemies into allies. Sometimes the galaxy needs that. Sometimes it doesn't. The trick is knowing the difference. The general's scared face twisted in what passed for a smile. And who decides that difference? We all do, Martins replied. Together. After all, isn't that what civilization is about? Not fighting battles, but finding better solutions. As she left the chamber, Martinez sent a simple message to Earth Command. Operation Sanctuary is go. Time to show the galaxy why humans make better friends than enemies. The resolution. The observation deck of the Earth ship Redemption offered a spectacular view of what many had thought impossible. The swarm, once a terror of the galaxy, now peacefully orbiting a reconstructed gas giant in the Nexus sector. Dr. Elena Martinez stood with first speaker Maya Vox, watching the massive biological ships gracefully harvesting essential elements from the planet's atmosphere. 3 months. Maya Vox's plasma form pulsed with amazement. In 3 months, you didn't just stop the swarm, you transformed them into a symbiotic part of our civilization. Martinez nodded. Once we understood they were fleeing the collapse of their home galaxy's molecular structure, the solution was obvious. They didn't need to be fought. They needed a stable food source and a place to belong. Obvious. The first speaker's form flickered with what might have been laughter. Your scientists developed artificial gas giants specifically calibrated to their nutritional needs. Your engineers created an entire new form of space-time architecture to stabilize their feeding grounds. You call this obvious? To humans? Yes. Martinez turned to face her colleague. We've spent centuries imagining scenarios like this. Every story about misunderstood aliens, every tale of communication across impossible barriers, they were all preparation for this moment. Below them, a swarm ship was teaching a Silicon Collective vessel new techniques for quantum field manipulation. The very beings that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization were now sharing technological advances that would benefit all species. The Council has been discussing the future of Resolution 447X, Maya Vox said carefully. Many feel it should be permanently repealed. No. Martinez's response was immediate and firm. The resolution should stay, but it needs to be modified. She gestured at the scene before them. Humans aren't meant to be warriors for the galaxy. We're meant to be its problem solvers. Its imagination. Its ability to see beyond the obvious to what's possible. A holographic display activated, showing the new proposal humanity had drafted. We're suggesting the creation of a new division within the Council, the Human Crisis Response and Innovation Corps. Not a military force, but a team of specialists who approach galactic problems from uniquely human perspectives. Maya Vox studied the proposal. You want to institutionalize human creativity. We want to give the galaxy access to humanity's greatest strength, our ability to imagine solutions where others see only problems. Under strict oversight, of course. Martinez smiled. We've learned our lessons about the responsibility that comes with our capabilities. The display showed examples of potential applications. Human diplomatic teams trained in science fiction scenario planning. Engineering corps specialized in adapting Earth's entertainment technology into real-world solutions. Cultural exchange programs focused on sharing humanity's problem-solving methodologies. The swarm crisis taught us something important, Martinez continued. Humanity's real power isn't in our ability to fight. It's in our ability to transform challenges into opportunities, to see potential allies where others see only enemies, to imagine futures that no one else can envision. A swarm ship passed close to the observation window, its bioluminescent patterns now forming recognizable communication symbols, a merger of their natural abilities with human-inspired linguistic protocols. Look at them, Martinez said softly. A month ago, they were the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Now they're helping us develop new technologies, sharing their understanding of biological engineering, becoming part of our civilization. That's what humans do best. We don't just solve problems, we turn them into advantages. The first speaker's plasma form brightened in understanding. So the resolution remains. but evolves. Humans stay out of warfare not because you're too dangerous to fight, but because we're too valuable as problem solvers. Martine, it's finished. Let other species handle the conventional military needs of the galaxy. Earth will provide the imagination, the innovation, the ability to see solutions where others see only threats. She turned back to the window. After all, isn't that what the galaxy really needs? Not more weapons or warriors, but more dreams, more possibilities, more ways to turn today's enemies into tomorrow's friends. As if in response, the swarm ships began their evening light show, a beautiful display of coordinated bioluminescence that merged art and communication. It was based on a human child's suggestion during the first contact negotiations, now evolved into a galaxy-wide form of cultural expression. Perhaps, Maya Vox said thoughtfully, this is what we should have understood from the beginning. It wasn't humanity's capacity for warfare that made you unique. It was your capacity for transformation. Of yourselves, of your enemies, of the very problems you face. Martinez nodded. That's the real reason the resolution should stay. Not to contain humanity, but to focus us on what we do best. Imagining better futures, and then making them real. The modified resolution passed unanimously. As the galaxy entered a new era, other species began to understand what humans had known all along. The greatest victories don't come from winning fights, but from transforming them into opportunities for growth, understanding, and change. And in the darkness between the stars, humanity's greatest weapon, imagination, continued to light the way forward, not to war, but to possibilities yet unimagined.